So good evening, everyone. Joining us tonight from the Oshawa Generals, Mr. Sean Patrick Ryan. If you didn't know, the Oshawa Generals have had a lot of their players go on to be premier NHLers. Bobby Orr is probably the most famous, I would say, probably followed by Eric Lindros, John Tavares, Dave Andrzejczyk, Wayne Cashman, Terry O'Reilly, Wayne Primo, Michael Del Zotto, Boone Jenner, Kirk McLean, Calvin DeHaan, just to name a few. And also the Generals have been kind of a feeder system for the Edmonton Oilers, producing the likes of Charlie Huddy, Lee Fogelin, Jason Arnott, Ben Eager, and Fred Brathwaite. I think that's the list. Maybe there's more. I don't even know. So I got a few questions for you, Sean, and I got to start with two of them. One is, are the Generals responsible for producing the most NHL talent out of anybody in the entire CHL? And the second one is, are the Oilers using their former their Oshawa Generals alumni as scouts like my Lakeland College Rustlers would do for our volleyball team, considering that the Oilers revealed this summer that they don't have a scout in the OHL.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Pleasure being on. And you forgot a guy there, Anthony Cirelli, a key part of 2015 Memorial Cup winning team. He was a heck of a player and still is in the NHL. And as far as the connection there, the Oilers also have they drafted Ty Tullio not too long ago. Is from the Oshawa Generals. His dad is the owner, so there's a strong connection there. Maybe we can build some more connections moving forward. Would be nice.
Yeah, I started reading up because I knew I was having you on the Oshawa Generals, and I was blown away at the talent that they've produced that went on to have pretty fruitful NHL careers.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the most in the NHL, but it's certainly up there. I know the London Knights have produce a lot year in and year out, but yeah, they're definitely up there. And if you count the old OHA and OHL combined, the Generals have the most OHL championships, so there's that as well.
How long have you been watching them now? They're
watching them?
Yeah, well, scouting them and what have you.
I've been scouting them for just for a year, but growing up watching the OHL, I mean, I grew up. Lindros was my favorite player when I was a kid. Watching the OHL for a long, long time. We had seasons tickets for a long time here in London as well. So yeah, it's always been a team. It's just one of those teams that has a lot of prestige. I kind of find, because like you said, Bobby Orr, Eric Lindros, the names that kind of go through there, right? So yeah, it's scouting for a year, but following them from afar for many, many years.
So do you remember Tullio then? Do you remember what he was like then as an Oshawa General?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was so when I did the Oil Night stuff, my website there for years, I did independent scouting. I did a few articles on that. He was one of the guys that I specifically targeted for the Oilers. And I remember on draft night, I remember tweeting out constantly, draft Tullio. We want this guy. Get him on the Oilers. He'd be a perfect fit. just with the elite shot he has and the just, you know, the aggressive nature he plays with. Very chippy player. He doesn't back down, and he's got great leadership too. So yeah, he was definitely one of my targets. So I'm happy they ended up taking him.
Do you think he dropped down? Like, he was a 5th-round pick. That's quite a ways down there. Do you think there was a drop down in his play or something that brought him back down to round 5?
I had him ranked as a 2nd-round pick, and I know a lot of people did as well. There were a lot of guys that year. It was a funny year. There were a lot of guys in the OHL that really dropped, maybe just because there was a lot of talent in the league. And I know there was a big run on like U.S. high school players. That was kind of a big thing. So there were U.S. high school players because they got an extra year of eligibility or something. So you're seeing a lot of those guys were taken higher than usual. And a lot of the OHLers, Martin Chromiak was another one. There was a whole bunch of guys from the OHL that actually dropped. But for Ty specifically, I think maybe one of the knocks was his he didn't have ideal size. And he wasn't a burner, so I think maybe that's why he slipped a little bit. But as we've seen with a lot of guys, like I compared his game to Brendan Gallagher, and I still do, who was also a 5th-round pick. I think those are the sleeper guys. A lot of people underestimate, and I wouldn't worry too much about where he was initially drafted. I think he's projecting well, and he's doing well in Bakersfield his first year. So I think the Oilers got a real keeper there.
You have anything, Chad, there?
Yeah, so do you think that Ryan Gagne would be a good addition to the Oilers?
Ryan Gagne? Yeah, I believe he just signed somewhere. Was it Chicago? Ryan Gagne. Let's see. I'm pretty sure.
He went to Colorado, but you think he'd be a good Oiler?
I mean, yeah, sure. He would be. I mean, he was kind of one of our main players this past season. He brings a great work ethic. He's a smart hockey player. He's got a lot of skill. Obviously, he wasn't drafted during his draft year, so anyone that's not familiar with him, he finished out his overage year last year. So you could basically sign with anywhere. And it looks like I think he did sign with Rockford, which is Chicago's farm system. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if the Oilers could get someone like that, sure.
Yeah, he's the kind of character guy that I think that our team's missing.
Yeah.
Maybe, Sean, you can break down the process of what it's like for you to do what you do, who you look at. Are you looking at guys specifically just in the CHL or like competitors that you're going to play against, or if you're looking for I'm not sure where all that defense comes from, but people in kind of minor hockey that are coming and that you're potentially trying to get to come to your organization. Just go through the whole kind of gamut, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll just kind of summarize it. I mean, first of all, it's a real fun process. Scouting under 16s is every year it's different, right? I basically start with a blank page. I have no idea who anyone is. Like, I don't follow the under 15s really. There are some guys that get called up during the year, but I don't really follow them. So every year is a new year. And it starts off with 2 major tournaments. So the end of September and October, there's 2 tournaments that start off, and you get, there's 6, now 5 major leagues in Ontario. So there's the Alliance, which is around London. That's my main region. Then there's the Toronto area, the GTHL. That's where McDavid, Tavares, Stamkos, all the elite players tend to gravitate towards there. And then, not to say there's not elite players in other leagues, but so that's the main one in the Alliance. And then you've got 2, one basically north and south of Toronto, and then you got one that's kind of east of Toronto. Those are 2 separate leagues. They form together. Then you've got one in the Ottawa League, and you've got one up north, Sudbury and North Bay. So basically, the first 2 tournaments start. You get teams from all over Ontario. You kind of get a feel for who the top players are in all these teams. You get just an initial look kind of thing. And then from there, start banging out the Alliance, which is my area. Get comfortable with my region, all the best teams, all the best players, kind of sort out who's playing on the top lines, who the top defenders are and all that, and get the jersey numbers, really just kind of get know your league inside and out. And then after a couple of months, then we have the freedom to kind of branch out, right? And the good thing with London is I'm within 2 hours of Oshawa, 2 hours of Windsor, 2 hours of Niagara. So I'm kind of like right in the middle. So I can pretty much hit any team out of those 4 leagues, all within a 2-hour driving distance. So we kind of cross over a little bit, kind of cover each other's areas. And then I'd say probably around December or so, we all sit down and Zoom meeting and we start coming up with our initial lists. Guys that we kind of want to focus on a little bit more in the new year. And then, of course, there's other tournaments that come out, and then just keep hammering away at that. And you start ranking players, moving them up and down the list, and more tournaments of that. And then you get to the OHL Cup and the skills camp and all that. And then it really starts to kind of become a little bit more clear who the elite are and who isn't, right? And then you formulate your draft boards, and the last couple of days is a little bit hectic leading up to the draft. We all get in the boardroom and we all kind of put our heads together and let's come up with a list we're confident with, and then just kind of let the draft fall where it does, right? So that's kind of the overall process. And it's a lot of fun.
A lot of that stuff there, you mentioned, a lot of elite players kind of come to the top, and that's kind of what you guys keep your eyes on there for the most part. But is there also a place where you guys start looking for, like, at that age, are you able to see guys who can develop into role players more so, like checking forwards or defensive forwards or what have you, stay-at-home defensemen?
Yeah, there are. Like when we come up with a list, for example, it's anywhere between 150 and 200 names, right? So, and there's 20 teams in the league. So, you're looking at, just with 200 players, you're looking at 10 rounds there. But usually what happens is you don't get past number 60 or 70. That's just how the draft falls. There's a lot of American kids. You weren't sure if they were going to come or not, and so on. So, we're always looking for, and we might get into this exactly what we look for, but we're always looking for the most talented kids. We're not looking specifically for a shutdown defenseman or a role player kind of thing. We're looking for the most talented kids, plain and simple. And if, we get into the 10th, 11th round and we see a kid that we think might be a great shutdown player and he's on our board above some of the others, then we'll certainly go that route. But I don't think we're looking for specific roles. We're just looking for the best players we can at every point of the draft, really.
Are there certain attributes that you put higher for certain, like that you're looking at? Do you rank skating higher than, hockey IQ, that kind of thing?
Well, there's 4 things we look at. We look at, really, or I look at. I'm just going to speak for myself, not for the organization or other scouts, just for me. I definitely look at skating, the skill, the hockey IQ, and the work ethic. Those are the 4 big things. And then, like, for defensemen, when it comes to like puck moving ability, which I'm really big on, I kind of consider that a combination of skill and smart. So you're smart moving the puck. I consider that a skill. Those are the 4 major things that I look for initially when we go through it. And then as you go through, there's, physicality and things like that. Or, if they have a lot of jam, they can handle physicality. That's always a bonus. If they play a good 200-foot game, that's a bonus, all that stuff, right? So that's kind of the core things that we look for. In terms of what do I value the most, I would say hockey sense for sure. I love smart hockey players, kids that make good decisions, are reliable on the ice, that just get it, have a great sense, a great feel for the game. I love those smart little subtle plays that they make, little one-touch passes, things like that. That just, if I'll take a smart hockey player almost over anyone. Not to say the other attributes aren't valuable, but that's something that I really, really look for. If I've got two prospects that are very similar, I'm looking for who's got the better hockey sense. That's the ultimate deciding factor. And then I guess, like, for the one quality that I don't like, there's pretty much a deal breaker for me would be work ethic. If I see a prospect that doesn't work hard consistently, they're lazy, and lazy turnovers, and they're not hustling and all that, that's a big for me anyways. that's a big no-no. Like I put them way down on my list. And that's even goes back to when I did all the all-night stuff. I had controversial picks all the time. I thought I considered guys lazy or poor work ethics. I was dropping them way down. Because you can't change a tiger stripes quite often. If a guy can't get motivated, playing junior hockey, he doesn't have enough self-motivation, or a coach can't get him going in junior. Just imagine if you give him some money, he has a pro contract now, how motivated is he going to be, right? So, so that's kind of what I break it down to, I guess, when it comes to the skills of that.
Is the OHL a lot like the NCAA when it comes to recruiting their players? Like when you're going scouting, like it comes with an education package, correct?
Yes. Well, yeah. There's different levels of education packages. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know the NHL was really pushing hard, and a lot of teams were pushing hard to start scouting kids that were in the NCAA because, once you're done hockey, what do you got, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they really admire these kids that are coming in with an education. And I know that the OHL, the CHL have done a really good job of implementing the education package. So I'm just curious, like, is it a factor as well when you're scouting these kids, is how well they're doing at school?
It is, and that's not something that I focus on too much. My job's more on ice stuff in terms of scouting. We leave like our director of scouting and head scouts to kind of cover that part of it. But I mean, that being said, like I can tell you, when you scout players, like if we scout an American player, for example, let's say he lives near Notre Dame University, and we convince him to come play for our team, we draft him. We have to pay him, I believe, depending what is, I think we have to pay him whatever the tuition is for Notre Dame, like the university that's closest to him. I think you have to come up with some type of package for that to help them pay through school, right? Again, I don't really handle any of that stuff, but I know that's a factor, and them doing well in school is also a factor.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think that's the biggest improvement I've seen in the hockey development, is that not just the style of play and the amazing coaching and whatnot. The OHL has always put out great players, but incorporating that education to those kids is giving them a lifelong ability to earn and to be successful.
Well, for sure. And I mean, we're always making sure they're doing good in school, and because like usually they're in school during the week, right? Like OHL games typically are just on the weekends. There is one game a week or something, usually, give or take. But
you have a bigger schedule than the NCAA, so I think that's why you have better hockey development. And you're in Canada because we rule at hockey.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to argue that point.
But it is true. The OHL, you guys do offer that education package, but you have a better schedule or a stronger schedule for hockey playing than in the NCAA. Like they haven't
more games
set up yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Sean, can you go through like the calendar year, what your year kind of looks like?
Yeah. So right now we're in off season. So I go to. We've got training camp at the end of August. So that's really kind of when my season starts, is August. Although that being said, well, I'll start from August and I'll go the other way. So we do that. Training camp starts. September is exhibition games and that. And then there's the two big tournaments that I talked about, the end of September and then the beginning of October. And one of them is actually in London. So there's those two to kind of kick off the year. Then all the league play starts. So I'm at training camp initially because I want to see all the guys we drafted. And then I'm at all the tournaments, and then I start scouting my region. We go all the way through until the draft. And then after the draft, there is an orientation camp, which we go see like a rookie camp, basically. You go see all the rookies there, meet the parents and do all that stuff and wish them luck. And then you're pretty much done. So there is an import draft that I'm not really involved in at this point. So basically, my season, I'm done, May, say June, orientation. I'm done in June, early June, mid-June, and then I'm off till August.
So I get my summer off. Fires back up again.
Yep. Rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
So How many nights a week in the wintertime there are you watching hockey there? Are you out at a rink?
In the wintertime or in general?
Yeah. In the hockey season time. Yeah.
A couple nights a week. I'm fortunate that I live. So there's a London Junior Nights. They're one of the top U16 teams in this area. The arena is about 7 minutes from my house. So when in doubt, like if the roads are bad, let's say, for example, I plan on going to Waterloo or I plan on going to Windsor or something, and the roads are really bad, I can always still catch a game in London, right? It's kind of my fallback. And there's another one that's another team, Elgin Middlesex, is literally just outside of London. That's like 20 minutes from my house. So there's two teams really close. Those are always my fallback options. But I try and catch one during the week if I can. If not, I try and catch two on the weekend. So I'd say at least 2 a week. And then, of course, we go to tournaments. You catch, 8 to 10 games in a weekend sort of thing, right? So, and I should mention also, I do a lot of video. The video quality is not great compared to the OHL, but I scout all the other leagues on video while I'm doing my league as well. And then that way, at least I get a feel for who I want to go check out live once I move on from like December sort of thing. So I'd say 2 a week and then plus another 3 to 5 on video.
Do you have an ongoing rankings chart that you keep throughout the season?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
and how often you make changes to that chart? Just basically per game or every month, every couple of weeks?
I'm always tinkering with that myself. We don't get together till December where we all kind of come together and let's see your rankings and let's all see. And it's interesting because, and the beauty of scouting is it's so subjective, right? So I can go watch a player on a certain night and see him good, and another scout can go watch the same player on a different night and see him bad. So when we get together initially, we all have different opinions on certain guys that we've seen because, again, it depends on which night you catch them, a good night or a bad night, right? So then that's where you can have some real good discussions like, you know what, we got to watch this player more. Like we're all over the map with this prospect, right? So they kind of go on a list or whatever. So the rankings kind of do fluctuate a little bit, but we start off with a list in December, and then we just kind of slowly start to whittle that down a little bit as the picture becomes a little bit more clear. And I'm also a big stats guy. So I also track all the stats of every player on every team in every league in the OHL. So so if I notice that guys are really, going on a scoring streak and I haven't even seen that guy play, if they're in Ottawa, for example, I'll pop on the video and I'll start watching them and get familiar with them sort of thing, right? So that way I'm not out of the loop when it comes to anybody when they get brought up in meetings. At least I'm familiar. I've seen them at least on video, right? So, but yeah, it's always constantly up. Even in my sleep, I'm constantly right. It's crazy.
So spending the year in Oshawa, Sean, what's the biggest difference between when you were kind of charting players kind of on your own through the oil night to actually doing it for an OHL team? What's the biggest difference and what have you learned?
Biggest differences, well, one is the video. The video is just not good for under 16. It just isn't. There's resources that they give you that you can watch it. Like I won't throw out any names, but it's hard. It's choppy. It's poor quality. So that can be tough when you're scouting. When I was doing the all night stuff, I was staying up till 3 a.m. watching Ty Tulio playing. Where was he playing? Slovenia or Slovakia? Was it Slovenia? I think it was Slovenia.
Slovakia for a bit. He was, yeah.
Or Slovakia, I think. And the video was good, right? Pretty much the video was good anywhere. In CHL, it's just high quality. But in the U16s, it's not great. So it's really tough to you just got to be careful when you're watching on video to not diminish a guy's play because he doesn't look good on video. Like, I'll just give you a quick example. So the kid that went first overall, his name's Matthew Schaefer. He went first overall. The first time I saw him, he was injured for the, first 15 games or so. I went to go see his game. It was his first game. of the season, about 15 games into the season. He was injured all year. He went coast. He took the puck. He's a defenseman. He took the puck from behind his net and he went coast to coast, walked through the whole team and roofed it top corner. One of the best goals I've ever seen from a defenseman in a very long time. Immediately, I'm like, this kid's top 3 for sure. A few days later, I uploaded the video and I wanted to show everybody. I'm like, you got to see this goal. And I showed them the video and they're like, oh, yeah, that was decent. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, that just doesn't do it justice. Like, you miss the explosiveness. It's, like I said, it's kind of choppy. And I'm like, wow, what a difference between live and video. Like, I can't believe it. So right then and there, I was kind of like, I got to be careful when I'm doing this because that's one of the greatest goals I've ever seen live. And it looked average. It looked meh on video, right? So, so that's one big difference. And then the other thing I would say is it's just size. The size is the biggest difference. Like, guys, like when you get drafted to the OHL, for example, all these guys that get drafted to the NHL, they're at least, 5'10", 170 pounds, usually 5'11", 165, maybe something like that. There are so many kids in this past draft that are 5'7", 145 pounds, 5'8", 150. And they all have similar skill sets. They're all skilled, but they're all small. So it's tough to kind of distinguish. Like, it's almost a bit of a guessing game. Like, and some of it is you judge by the parents, quite honestly. If the parents are big and the kid's, 5'8", 150 pounds, you're hoping they're going to grow up a little bit like the parents, right? Well, I don't think that really comes into play when it goes from OHL to NHL. But these kids are only 15 years old and they haven't really necessarily hit that growth spurt yet. And just an example that comes to mind is Jack Quinn, the Buffalo Sabres. He was top 10 pick. When he got drafted to the OHL, he was 5'8" and a half, and I think he was 150 pounds. And now he's 6'1", 185, right? And he was a second round draft pick in the OHL. People are like, well, he's talented, but he's small. Then he shoots up, he lights it up in the OHL, and he's a top 10 NHL pick, right? Like, who would have saw that coming, right? So I think that's kind of the main, shaking this table. I think that's kind of the main difference. Is just trying to sort out all these little guys, who's going to grow, who's got the skills that you're hoping if they put on a little bit of size and weight, it's going to be a real OHL player, because a lot of these kids don't grow much either, right? So it really is tough.
I think in that respect, it's almost got to be harder to scout for junior teams, because they are in that transition period of boys becoming pre-men kind of thing. So, like you said, it's a lot of the guessing game into what they'll actually turn out to be like physically.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, like, now if they're 5'9", 5'10", and 135 pounds, well, you're hoping they're going to fill out, right? Out into. You can kind of tell by their frame. But again, yeah, like there wasn't a single guy, Bob. There wasn't a single guy in this draft in the first round that was under 5'9". So Everybody still got drafted. If you're 5'9" or over, that was considered you had good size. So but all these 5'8" guys, none of them were drafted in the first round, but there were a ton drafted in like the second, third, fourth round. You never know. Some of these kids are going to grow up and fill out, and some of them just aren't. So it definitely is a crapshoot for sure.
Well, if we're going by size, then my left leg would have been a third round draft pick in the OHL.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tee you up to something that leads to a Sunday show. But was there anybody you've watched that you totally got wrong on where they would end up and how successful they'd become?
Yeah, there's a few. I'll give you three. Okay, I'll leave the last one. Who is coming? So we'll start with Eric Goodbranson. Okay, he was one. I thought he was, and there was a lot of talk about Eric Goodbranson being the next Chris Pronger. A lot of talk. I think he went third overall or something. Right, big defenseman, physical, tough. I kind of bought into the hype a long time ago, and I kind of thought that, all right, this guy's going to be just an absolute machine. Now, he still turned out to be a very solid NHLer, and I think he's still in the league. But there were a lot of, because he was strong and he was big, a lot of people kind of thought, well, they consider, well, he had offensive upside, and they kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt that the rest of the game would be there. And I feel like they kind of overrated him a bit just because everybody liked that guy. They wanted to compare him so bad to Pronger. They kind of they figured that offensive upside would come around, and he was a home run pick, right? So with him, I kind of bought into the hype, and that's one of the things now, while I'm not really a sizeist. While I like size and all that, I don't buy into that hype too much anymore. Just because a kid is huge and dominates in junior doesn't mean, well, they're bigger than everyone in junior. They're playing kids that are 5'8", 5'9". But once you get the NHL, that starts to balance out a little bit. And, and you're not, all of a sudden, you're not the biggest kid on the block, right? And it's easier to look dominant when you're so big in junior. And I just think his offensive skills were overrated a little bit. He's still a great player, but like defensively, just the offense wasn't there. So that's one guy I kind of got wrong. I thought he was going to be the next Chris Pronger. And then let me think, who else did I have on my list? Oh, another guy I thought about was Daniel Tkachuk. You guys remember Daniel Tkachuk?
Yeah. Flames draft pick.
First round pick. I'd never really seen him play until he played for Team Canada, the World Juniors. And I remember watching Team Canada, the World Juniors, and I'm like, man, this kid, I haven't seen him play anywhere else, but this kid looks like a surefire NHL pick. Like, I was convinced. Daniel Tkachuk, Calgary made a great pick. He seemed to have leadership and skill and smarts. I'm like, he had a great tournament. I'm like, this kid is the real deal. Never seen him play other than that tournament. So the lesson I learned there is don't judge a player based on one good tournament. Okay, because he actually ended up not doing anything. So that's two. And then the last guy was actually one of my favorite players. And then we can talk about that. And one of the best players I've ever seen was Robbie Schremp. And with Robbie Schremp would do things like, was just unbelievable, even in practice. Loved the guy. And obviously I'm from London. My parents had seasons tickets for all these years in London. Robbie Schremp was a phenomenal offensive hockey player. Didn't work out in the NHL, obviously. He was a first-round pick. I think kind of what I learned with that, though, I was so enamored by his skill alone that everybody kind of knew he had some warts or red flags or whatever. But I was one of the ones for sure that just ignored all of that. I'm like, I don't care if he's not great defensively. I don't care if he's not the fastest player. Have you seen the skill he has? He can dangle, in a phone booth and all that. So I kind of learned back then that don't be so enamored just with skill. It's very important to have all these other attributes, right? And red flags matter, right? So that's, so that's kind of the three big ones. And that, quite honestly, I still, like, every year when I'm going through and I'm doing my evaluations, I always circle back and think back to those three guys in particular when it comes to either a big guy, or I watch a guy play one big tournament, or I see a guy that's real flashy, but he turns over the puck like crazy in his own zone, things like that. I always kind of refer back to those three in particular. And I love Robbie Schremp, by the way.
How about turning the tables on that one there? How about some guy that you really fought for to be picked higher, and but there you kind of got some resistance, but in the end they kind of showed that you were probably right.
Well, it's still to be determined with Oshawa. In the past, let me think. Well, I think I'm right with Ty, Julio. I think I'm dead right with Ty. He is going to be a fun player to watch. I mean, he has it all. He does. I mean, that kid is just such a hard worker, and like I said, he's got an NHL elite shot. He's so smart. He has such a determination that he won't be stopped. Again, I compared him to Brendan Gallagher before the draft. I still think he's going to be Brendan Gallagher. So that's one guy I think will be correct. Let me think. Guys that I thought I was right about. I could go through the drafts and kind of see, but you kind of put me on the spot a little bit. Well, actually, one guy that I can tell you right now that comes to mind immediately And I was fighting for way back on LT's site many years ago when nobody knew me. I was pounding the table for Daniel Tkachuk. Or
Yeah.
Matthew Tkachuk. I got Daniel Tkachuk.
Oh, Matthew.
Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Pounding the table for Matthew Tkachuk. He played on a bum ankle in the Memorial Cup in London, and people said, "Oh, he was too slow. He's not a great skater," and all that. I said, "I'm telling you, this guy. If the Oilers, they need a guy like this. If they get Matthew Tkachuk, you put him with McDavid. I'm telling you, it's going to be lights out. He's got that grit." I was going crazy for it, and then ultimately they don't take him, but they picked up Lucic, who's a similar type rugged player instead. But if they would have took Tkachuk, they could have saved the money in Lucic and all that other stuff. So yeah, that's definitely one comes to the top of my head. Matthew Tkachuk, for sure. Isn't it amazing too? He gets out of Calgary and now he's not a dink anymore. He actually just playing hockey and
No, he's still a dink.
Well, maybe, but he's playing more in Florida. He plays more like he played in London. In Calgary, he was just, I don't know what was wrong with him. He was just a goon.
Well, and I hate to say this, but I think I'm going to get crucified by every Oiler fan in the world, but I do think that Tkachuk would have played well with Connor. Not in Calgary, but he's still a dink. It's my turn. I'm going to lighten the mood a little for you. I got two questions for you. First question. Should the Oilers fire Dustin Schwartz?
No comment. Probably, but no. I mean, I like Skinner a lot. Like when I did our thing with the Edmonton Journal there years ago, we were ranking all our players, and the Oilers had a bunch of prospect goalies: Rodriguez, Skinner, Konovalov, and all that. I had Skinner the highest. Yeah. I'm like, I still think this guy's going to be an NHL goalie, and I think he had a good year. Now, whether that's Schwartz or not, I don't know. I'm not a goalie coach. I'm not even great at scouting goalies, so I'm not going to blame the goalie coach here because I don't know.
Well, I'm going to answer it for you. Yes, we need to fire Dustin Schwartz.
All right.
Second, before Bob keeps going, because when we get celebrities on, he just won't shut up. So I'm going to get my other question in here right away. Okay. I see you're a Bears fan.
Yes.
How long have you been a Bears fan?
Fridge.
So I remember here's a true story. I remember when I was a little kid, my dad I think I was 9 or 10, and my dad was always watching football, and I didn't have a favorite team, and I remember my dad went in the kitchen and he just left the game on, and it was the Bears playing the Redskins, and the Redskins are going for a winning field goal, and this big fat guy named Refrigerator Perry busted through, jumped up and blocked the field goal, and the Bears won the game. And the Bears were going crazy, and I think my dad probably won some money on the game or something. Like, yeah, the Bears. And I was like, Dad, 9 or 10 years old. I was like, Dad, I'm a Bears fan. He's like, attaboy, and that was it. I was a Bears fan. I've been to Soldier Field many times. I've got pictures of Robbie Gould and Charles Tillman and all kinds of guys. So I don't know the exact time. So 9 or 10. So that would have been that. So I didn't see the 85 Bears. It was right after. So it was like 86, 87-ish.
Well, I got a fun story for you then.
Okay.
So back in the olden days, my uncle played for the Chicago Blackhawks. Him and Troy Murray and Gary Nyland put together a music band called the Chicago Six. Okay. In that band, there was my Uncle Kurt, Gary Nyland, Troy Murray, Dan Hampton, the Mountain.
Nice. Yep.
Dave Dwerson, and Walter Payton playing drums.
Oh, my goodness.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. So check that out. It was awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I remember I went to I took my dad to a Bears game, and we were staying in the hotel, and we went down. That's where we met a bunch of the players, and they were having Bears alumni in the bar. Kitty O'Shea's is a pub inside the hotel, and we were getting pictures with all these different guys. Sean McInerney, who played on the team, and we're having a few pops with Johnny Rowland, who was the Bears running backs coach when Walter Payton was there. And he also played in the NFL with Gale Sayers. And listening to him tell stories about those guys was just absolutely unbelievable. Like I was just in heaven. It was just amazing. He's showing us the ring. We're kissing the ring. And oh yeah, it was a great time. But anyways.
So we agree that you love the Bears and that Dustin Schwartz needs to be fired. Okay, correct. Bob, you're up.
Hey, I'm on the Fire Schwartz train as well. You know I am.
Yes.
You touched on something there.
Actually, I do have one question for you before Bob takes over like he always does.
Okay. Shoot.
What do you think? Do you think that Woodcroft made a mistake not playing Jack Campbell after he came in and saved the day against LA? Should he have went to Campbell? Really?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just because I'm a Skinner guy, Campbell just didn't do much all year, right? And
no, he did though. In the last quarter of the season, when he went back to his old goalie coaches, he all of a sudden lit it up. And everybody says he sucked, but he had 21 wins and 6 losses. He didn't suck.
Yeah, but what was his save percentage? That's a big thing, right?
It doesn't matter. Ask Grant Fear if save percentage matters.
Well, that's a different era. I don't know. It's era. Tough. It's tough. I mean, it could go either way. Ultimately, the culture, you would think the coach has the pulse of the team. If he went that way, I wasn't upset about it. I'm pretty sure I kept saying, go to Skinner, go to Skinner, go to Skinner. And I know in hindsight, it's easy to say, well, now they, maybe necessarily wasn't the best idea.
Game two in LA, I said, go to Campbell. Every time he got yanked, I said, go to Campbell. He got yanked more times than any other goaltender in the playoffs. And every time that Campbell came in, he played 6 periods and let in 1 goal.
Yeah. I mean, you can make an argument for sure. Jake Ottinger got pulled a whole bunch of times and then he bounced back too, right? So, I mean, I don't know. It's not for me to say. I don't know.
You touched on one thing, Ryan, about scouting goalies. So you pretty much admit that's not one of your strengths. But what do you look for when you're looking at scouting goalies?
I don't look at a lot. Quite honestly. I mean, we have a goalie coach, and he does a lot of the scouting too. Like he goes through and he kind of goes through it. I mean, I look for guys that are athletic, good poise. They seem to be square to the shooter. They have good fundamentals and all that stuff. But again, I'm not really an expert when it comes to that. So if I do see somebody that I think stands out, then I bring it up to our head scouts. Hey, this guy played fantastic. You might want to check this guy out again. They get eyes on him. They bring the goalie coach out. He comes out and he gets eyes on them. It's more kind of a group thing. I don't pretend that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. I do the best I can, and then I just say, hey, guys, you might want to take another look at this guy. He looked fantastic.
Mental fortitude is the only thing that matters with the goaltender. Strong in mind. Yeah.
What's a crucial part, like a majority part for sure.
Yeah. Well, you guys would know better than I would.
Sean, what's your projections for your team there in Oshawa this coming season?
I expect us to do well, for sure. We were a really young team last year. We had 5 16-year-olds. So those guys are obviously all coming back. Now hopefully we had a good draft here. So now our kind of our core team are made up of 17 and 16-year-olds, right? So we're young. We're one of the youngest teams in the OHL. We stuck into the playoffs last year. 8th seed. I expect us to have a strong season, right? I don't know if we'll be contending necessarily for the championship, but I think we're going to be a tough team to play against, and I think we're definitely going to be a playoff team. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Go Oshawa!
Thank you.
Did you get to watch Bo McKay much with the Barrie Colts? Do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I saw him a little bit. Yeah, he's a tremendous skater. That's what kind of stands out the most with him. And I think he's kind of he's not real flashy. He's just more of a smart, solid player. Makes a lot of good decisions on the ice. But yeah, the skating kind of stands out to me. I wouldn't expect a ton of offense from him, although I'm pretty sure he has a good shot. But yeah, he's kind of I don't know, maybe, I picture like a Jay Bouwmeester type, really good skater, can kind of move the puck and make a lot of good decisions. He's not going to hurt you.
Jay Bouwmeester's size?
What was that?
Has he got Bouwmeester's size?
Well, no, not quite. No, but similar stylistically, I mean.
That's awesome.
With the amount of time that you spend in other rinks and scouting and going through all your reports, do you get a chance to really follow like the big show kind of thing, the NHL, or do you focus when you do look at the NHL, do you focus more on like the prospect pool, or are you actually involved in the big stars, kind of watching everything play out?
That's a good question. Because I mean, I've been an Oilers fan forever, right? Since I was a little kid. I still follow the Oilers a lot. And that's about it when it comes to the NHL. I don't follow a lot of other teams. I don't have time to scout a lot of other teams, right? I'm so focused on my job, what I'm doing. And then when it's time for Daddy to put his feet up and relax, I put on the Oilers game. And luckily for me, I'm in Ontario. So the games I go scout usually start at 8 o'clock or 7:30. And by the time they're done, then the Oilers game comes on, especially if they're playing the West Coast, the 10 o'clock game here. I can kind of get the best of both worlds quite often, or I'll PVR it. I'll come home and watch it from the beginning, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't scout a lot. I mean, I certainly don't scout prospects for the NHL draft other than what I see. I mean, I go to Oshawa games too. I catch some of the games here in London, but I'm not scouting prospects for the NHL. I'm only watching the Oilers and scouting prospects for our team, and that's pretty much it. So I couldn't tell you for the draft last year, other than a couple.
What do you think the Oilers need to do to get over the hump and actually win a Stanley Cup?
That's a really good question, and that could be a long-winded answer.
That's okay. We got time.
I was going to say, I don't know how much time we have.
I'm going to
about 15.
Grab a drink, listen carefully.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my biggest beef. Okay. It kind of comes down to drafting, developing. That's where it all kind of starts. If you look at the Oilers, let me ask you a question. How many draft picks in the last 13 years? How many draft picks in the 4th round or later in the last 13 years? Let's say forwards. Let's just forwards. How many forward draft picks in the last 13 years have played for the Edmonton Oilers? Or how many games total? Count up however many players have made the Oilers that was a 4th round pick or later. How many games total have those draft picks played for the Oilers in the last 13 years? The answer is 0. None. There's not a single forward in the last 13 years that's drafted by the Oilers that played for the Oilers. Now, Tobias Reeder was drafted but never played for the Oilers. He went on a whole bunch of different teams, and then he came back, and eventually, I'm not counting that. There's not a single guy, right? You look at the Oilers. McDavid, 1st round pick. Draisaitl, 1st round pick. Hopkins, 1st round pick. Holloway, 1st round pick.
Nurse. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just talk forwards for a second.
Okay.
Puljujarvi was a 1st round pick. Yamamoto was a 1st round pick. And McLeod's a 2nd round pick. Nobody else on the team was drafted by the Oilers up front, right? Zach Hyman was a 5th round pick. How much money did they throw at that 5th round pick? Connor Brown is a 6th round pick. How much money did they throw at Connor Brown?
There's a reason,
right? So what I'm getting at is the Oilers for so many years have never had anybody to come in on their cheap ELCs, like in the 3rd or 4th rounds. There's been a couple guys in those last 13 years, by the way. There's only been 3 guys in the 3rd round. Slepyshev was a 3rd round pick. Kara was a 3rd round pick. And then Reeder, who was gone and came back. 13 years, you don't have a single guy up front contribute unless they were a 1st or 2nd round pick. That means you have to go out and how many years have the Oilers been looking for bottom 6 players? We got to find the right fit for bottom 6. They can never draft or find anybody later on. Now, that being said, hopefully this new regime, they've got Tullio Cummins, a 5th round pick. Carter Savoy's a 4th round pick. Petrov was 5th or 6th. They've remedied that. They've got some of these guys coming in, these cheap guys coming in that they can develop properly and contribute. But they're in salary cap hell because they constantly can't find the right guys up front to complement their top stars, is one thing. So that's a big problem. That's hurt them for many, many years. And then number two, they can't find quality goaltending. They can't get the right goalie, whatever it is. They had an opportunity to draft a guy like Wallstedt. He was sitting right there. He was the number one ranked goalie on a lot of boards, sitting right in front of them. They went for another forward. Even though they have so many forwards, so many first-round pick forwards, they went for another first-round pick forward. So that's frustrating. They went for a defenseman this next time around, which is good. So, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit. So the goaltending is definitely a problem. They have to fix that permanently. And I don't think Jack Campbell's the answer, quite honestly. They're going to need somebody to – I like Skinner, but I don't think he's a full-time number one going to win you a Stanley Cup. So they still need to address the goaltending. They got to sort out their bottom six again long-term, because this Connor Brown's on a one-year contract. Who knows if he's going to be back? Then they're going to throw another $4 or $5, $6 million at another guy that was drafted in the 5th or 6th round. By the way, and I'm all over the place here, look at Tampa Bay Lightning. Look at the Tampa Bay Lightning when they won the Stanley Cup. Tyler Johnson wasn't even drafted. How important was he on that team? Yanni Gourde wasn't drafted. Andre Palat, 7th-round pick. Sorelli, 3rd-round pick. Braden Point, 3rd-round pick. All these guys are getting 3rd, 4th rounds, later rounds, are contributing to championship teams, right? Even Calgary had picked Johnny Gaudreau. Where was he picked? 4th round? 4th, 5th round? Mangiapane, he's one of their best players. Where was he taken? 6th round? Like, there's all kinds of guys that contribute late in the draft. Oilers done a horrible job when it comes to forwards. They've been okay when it comes to defensemen. They've had a couple of guys, Bear Jones, Darnay, guys that can kind of fill in. You got to fix that. That's more long-term. And hopefully, like I said, they fix that a little bit with their
might not hurt to actually put a scout in the OHL.
Yeah, well, that could be a different story too. But then, I mean, the defense too. Ultimately, though, really the main problem with the team, I think, and it's been for a long time, is the defense. The defense is just not strong enough, and part of it could be coaching. I know they played a lot of man-to-man. There was all kinds of breakdowns I saw online. People hated the man-to-man defending, and teams really took advantage of that, manipulated that. But just that group in general, I just don't think it's the right mix. Ekholm was a huge pickup and a great step in fixing that, but I still think there's work to be done there. So you can spend all the first-round picks you want on forwards, but obviously that doesn't work. You need to fill out the bottom six. You need to draft and develop. You got to strengthen your defense, and you have to fix the goaltending long-term, enough of these stopgaps sort of thing. And they thought they had it with Campbell, but again, he could still prove us wrong. But, I mean, it's just...
He's going to prove us wrong, I promise you.
Oh, you're support.
Go, Jack! Go, Jack!
The way I feel about it is goalies are voodoo, and I don't think it could get much worse for Jack Campbell, so there's only one other way to go.
Well, but look at Vegas, though. Like, Vegas won the cup with Adin Hill. Hill, right? So you don't have to have a superstar goal. If you have the right system, you have, strong defensemen, a good core, they can kind of hide some of the deficiencies, right? Like Skinner got ripped in the playoffs. Like, people were ripping on him. But how many wide open one-time goals were there, right? Or he'd make the initial save and there's nobody there to clear the rebound.
But how many goals went under his skate and his pad close to the post? Like, Skinner is. I love Stuart Skinner. I think he's the future of the Oilers, no question. But to run a rookie when he's struggling in the playoffs was a fucking huge mistake. Huge. When Jack Campbell comes in and shows that he could play like Dwayne Rollison against LA, you run with that horse. Like, don't be foolish. Don't ruin Stuart's confidence. And that's what I feel they did. You pull him in 5 games. He gets pulled in 5 games.
He got pulled in a third of his starts. I mean, that's got to eat away at your mental psyche.
And what did I say about goaltending scouting? What's the most important part? Mental fortitude. So they fuck with Stewart's mental fortitude. They got a guy they're paying $5 million to come in and play a playoff game. Put him in the damn net then. See what he's got.
Well, my fear is they mess with both goalies' confidence. I mean, obviously pulling Stewart the whole time. That's got to shake you up, especially as a rookie. But Jack Campbell comes in, shuts the door, and all of a sudden he isn't warranted a start for the work he put in. It's got to mess with both guys' confidence. That's what bothers me about the whole thing.
So that's a coaching error, in my opinion, as a goaltender and as a goalie coach and as a coach. That is a fuck up by Woodcroft and the coaching staff.
Well, for the record, you're also a backup goalie on this podcast, Graham.
I kind of think Woodcroft was in the damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenario anyway. We tried, the playoff series going to Mike Smith, going to Koskinen, going back to Smith, and it just, I don't know. I think sometimes going with the girl that got you to the dance is sort of the way to go, but
how did Campbell not aid in getting them to the dance? 21 wins.
No,
he didn't suck.
Well, I think Campbell played well in that game against LA and probably warranted at least a look. I think though, if you were wanting to put him in Game 6 against Vegas, I think that's waiting too long. You had to do it before then if you were gonna make a switch. But
I agreed with starting Skinner to begin the playoffs because he did earn that for sure. But when we started struggling, especially after Campbell comes in to save us in the LA series, that definitely warranted him a start as well. But that's a whole new podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get victimized by your own success. I mean, they went to Campbell, he saved the day. They go back to Skinner, and he got the job done. So you think you're in the clear, and it just kind of ended up being this roller coaster of goaltending, and couldn't really get out of the funk. I don't think all the blame goes to Stuart Skinner though for us not beating Vegas. I think we got wrapped up in trying to be a bit of a bully in that series, and being the aggressor and the one to say, hey, this is our series to lose. And I think getting into that whole mentality took us out of what we're really good at, is being a high skill, high octane hockey team. And Vegas made us pay.
I'll never blame Stuart Skinner for Vegas ever, as long as I live. What I do blame though is that started and the Oilers started to change their game plan to, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, then you need to put your experience back in net and hope to God that he can at least rally them in net to produce something different. Because when the Oilers played with Stewart, after Stewart got pulled the fourth time, you could see that the Oilers were playing a little more timid hockey, and I didn't like that. They didn't have the trust that everybody thought that they did, and they didn't have it. I'm telling you right now, they didn't. And when Jack came in, he played with fire and aggression, and he played like a playoff goaltender, and he never got the chance. And I'm pissed off, and I'm going to stay pissed off until they give him that chance.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, he didn't win it for the Leafs either, but and I'm just looking at the stats real quick. 888 save percentage regular. I know it's regular season. Skinner 914. Like Dirsa says, you kind of go with the girl that got you there. That's a big discrepancy.
It is. The problem is like when Jack had his bad games, they were atrocious, and that's why his stats kind of get decelerated there on some shitty goals. But again, Skinner was our starter, but you got a guy $5 million there who came in and did $5 million job there for the time he was in, and didn't get a chance to earn his paycheck really for the rest of the playoffs. So
you're paying him $5 million. In the last quarter of the season, he went back to his old goalie coaches and got his head back in the game and played amazing. Both him and Skinner were unreal in the last quarter of the season. You can pick any goalie. And then you run with Skinner, I totally agree, 100%. And then as soon as Jack comes in and saves the day, maybe that's the time to put your experienced guy in the net and see how it goes. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You lose in the second round?
Well, if you're making that switch, I mean, you're going to Campbell after he saves the day against LA, so you still have to get through LA to move on to the second round. So
which he would have. Like the Angel, thank you. Campbell's postseason save percentage was .961.
Yeah, no, he played well when he was called upon. There's I don't know if there's anybody that can really deny that. Anyway, Sean, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's the first time I've gotten to kind of do this with you outside of Oilers Live show. So thanks for granting my request and coming on. And I wish you nothing but the best this season in Oshawa. Hopefully you guys can have a successful season, and we look forward to getting you back. You were kind of stuck in the matrix for some of your video tonight, but your audio was crystal clear. So
Okay.
that worked out good. If you guys have anything else left you want to say to Sean, just go for it, and then we'll close it out. And
yeah, keep doing a great job with Oshawa. I learned a lot tonight. I appreciate you as a guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
First side note from me. I know Angel said 961 save percentage for Jack Campbell. Great stat to bring up. Appreciate that. Stanley Cup winning goalie Aiden Hill won the Stanley Cup with a 932 save percentage. So that's a pretty good juxtaposition there. Other than that, same as what Chad said. I learned a lot in this podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us there, Ryan. I got inside look on what you guys go through, and just a couple of your stories you had that kind of your experiences, and just that it definitely opens up my eyes when I watch minor hockey. I have a goalie mentality. I watch the goalies mainly, like I have scouted goalies before, but not to the degree you do. And so I again hold the appreciation of what you look for, and just the work that you put into and to do the job that you do. So I appreciate it again coming on, Ryan.
I told you Bob talks a lot.
No problem. You can call me Ryan too. My boss calls me Ryan. I said, hey, you hired me. You can call me whatever you want.
I did.
Just don't call me late for supper.
Exactly.
Well, everybody, keep your sticks on the ice, keep reaching for the stars, and go Oilers go. Good night from all of us here.